From Lazada, Dominic Hoffmann joins us. First, some supporters to thank, and thank you for listening. Here it is, the fully integrated cloud CX platform that you need to act smarter, respond faster, and be first in CX. Now you can turn innovation into value, scale up when you need, and add new capabilities whenever the situation demands it. One experience, a single unified solution for employees and customers. One cloud, a single cloud offering based on AWS public cloud technology. One path for migration to the CX1 platform. The fully integrated cloud customer experience platform from NICE, allowing you to be first in CX. Visit nice.com for more. Leaders responsible for operations, information technology, customer experience, contact centers, customer care, service and support are invited to register for a free CCW digital membership. Membership includes networking with 100,000 plus qualified industry professionals, quarterly executive research reports, product matchmaking, and more. Go to ccwdigital.com to join the community. That's ccwdigital.com. Dominic Hoffmann, the Chief Customer Experience Officer of Lazada Malaysia, of the Lazada Group, of the Alibaba Group, joins us and shares that NPS might not be the definition of success as it's currently widely understood. That said, Dominic does agree that it's one of the most important KPIs to measure the customer experience. The organization even uses it as a basis for incentives. But for the customer experience practice, you need to see it from a different angle. Don't utilize NPS as a blunt object. The goal for CX is to unpack NPS to understand what it entails and how its recipe might have changed from one year to the next or over the lifetime of the organization. Welcome to CCW Digital on B2B IQ. I'm your host, Seth Adler. Download episodes on ccwdigital.com or through our app in iTunes, within the iTunes podcast app, and Google Play, or wherever you currently get your podcasts. Dominic Hoffmann,
Chief Customer Experience Officer of Lazada Malaysia, which is part of Lazada Group, which is then part of Alibaba Group.
Okay. There are folks in Asia that listen to this that, of course, understand. There are folks in Europe that probably understand. There are folks in the U.S. that probably don't understand. So just kind of give us an overview of those three entities so we're aware.
Yes. So Lazada was founded in 2012 by Rocket Internet out of Germany. Then multiple investors invested over the period of time. And then recently Lazada has been acquired by 83% of Alibaba Group.
Mm-hmm. You being the Chief Customer Experience Officer, how long have you been in that role?
In that role for Malaysia, I've been for the last 6 months, but I've been with Lazada for the last 3.5 years. And since I've joined Lazada, I've been in the loop for customer experience the whole time, first on a regional level, now dedicated for Malaysia.
One of the things that you just had a presentation here at Customer Experience Management Asia in Singapore, and one of the things that you said was to be wary of utilizing NPS. And most of the interviews I have very much value NPS. If for no other reason, this is a great KPI to measure against. If we can't use cost or if we can't use profit, let's use NPS. And then you just got up and told me not to. So take us through the thinking as far as, why not to maybe put NPS on the pedestal that we're putting it on.
So to a certain extent, I would say NPS is one of the key most important KPIs to measure the customer experience. Mm-hmm. That's why we talk about it so often. In Lazada, we use it as a key performance indicator to also measure year-end incentives, for example.
Okay.
So yes, we kind of value it very highly. Mm-hmm. For the customer experience practice, you need to see it from a different angle, because you cannot grow NPS year on year if you've been doing it for 5 years at certain growth levels or certain pace, especially when you repivot your business. Mm-hmm. If you add a new business towards it and this is impacting your NPS, you might stay flat with your NPS, but you've very successfully onboarded a new business line, which might have been on average at a lower NPS. Mm-hmm. So for CX professionals, especially in Lazada, it's very important to understand what actually entails the NPS for the organization and how does it change over the course of a year or the course of a lifetime of the organization.
If not NPS, understanding what you're saying. If not NPS, what?
So I'm in favor of a complementary feedback infrastructure because customer experience and the customer journey, if you look at it from a Lazada perspective, is a very, let's say, long process. It starts with discovering the website, coming to the website, ultimately this traffic that comes to the website converting into a sales, and then the after-sales process, and potentially maybe even having a return. A single metric does not give me the right feedback what the customer thinks.
So what is the entourage of metrics that you can share that you're using?
We use basic industry KPIs here. So we use NPS, and in addition we have customer effort score. We have CSAT for our customer service, and then we have additional surveys which are more geared to maybe cancellations by our customers and failed deliveries.
Okay. And so that's the suite that you're looking at.
Yes.
What else are you taking into account? You have just gone through tremendous trajectory growth over the past 5 years, you know, notwithstanding an acquisition from Alibaba, right? To what do you credit this?
So I think there's several reasons why Lazada had so much growth. So first of all, I think it was the right timing for the market. There was no other e-commerce player on a marketplace here before. I think Southeast Asia, especially 5 years ago, was very underdeveloped when it comes to this space that we're operating in. Then I think we identified the right key levers to enable our growth, which was shifting from a retail to a marketplace model, enabling this marketplace model to grow with the right assortment, not only from Southeast Asia, but also enabling cross-border network that brings in, for example, items from China into the region. So we kind of drive the supply for the region. This was one of our key enablers. In addition, we set up a logistics company behind all of that so that we also make sure that a certain portion of our parcels can be supported by our own logistics, and we're not only relying on available services that were there in the market. And last but not least, we also enabled, I think, through a payment channel such as HelloPay, for example, additional growth. So customers were trusting us and performing their payments on the platform.
What is the background of the leadership group that was able to kind of garner this much investment? I would imagine there was a tremendous amount of money that needed to be invested to do all of the things that you just mentioned.
Yes, I think here we're very happy to have a very diverse group of people who are working at Lazada, especially across the C-suite. Our group CEO, Maximilian Bittner, he comes from Germany. He initially started Lazada together with Rocket Internet, our first investor. And then I think with multiple other nationalities and a broad background of people coming from operations departments, coming from commercial backgrounds, coming also from the finance industry, consultancy background. I think with this diverse portfolio of initial stakeholders, founders, we made it this far. Yeah.
It also sounds like you're German?
Yes, I'm German as well.
Where are you from in Germany?
I'm from Frankfurt.
Okay. So let's make sure that we understand you and who you are. When you were growing up as a kid in Frankfurt, what were you interested in?
Soccer.
Of course you were.
Yes.
Also, very recently, not too recently, but recently enough, Germany beat the U.S. in the World Cup. You might remember this.
Yes.
It was soundly. It was not close. This was not a competition. It was almost like the Germans were playing different game than the Americans. You're aware of this?
Do you mean the Americans or the Brazilians?
No. They no. That's a different. No, that was. Thank goodness. I mean the Americans, right? The Brazilians was a much. That did not go well. But how serious is football taken in Germany for a young person? In other words, when I played soccer as a kid, we did what we did. But for you, was it were the stakes raised, do you think?
No, in Germany it's very important. I think it's the number one sport that is performed, especially by kids and young adults. And it's obviously very important for somebody like me growing up in Germany to partake in soccer or to build your team playing skills in any other form. But I think my preferred choice was then soccer and not handball or basketball or any other team sport. Yeah.
What kind of lessons did you take from the pitch into either university or into your professional life?
I think preparation is key. I think all battles are. No, let me say it differently. I think preparation is key. It's not only about the game, but how well prepared you kind of arrive at the game. To a certain extent, also knowing your opponent, whom you're going to meet on the pitch. And then I think what is also quite important, that everybody in the team of the 11 players has an individual role to contribute to the team. And this is kind of something where you evolve over a certain period of time, but you have this role in the game for the team. So all of a sudden, if I'm a striker, I will not be the goalie for the game and take his gloves and say that I can do it better. He's the dedicated person for the game. Or if I'm the captain, of course, then I will take pride and aim for my team against my opponent in winning the coin toss, for example.
Yeah, but you're saying focusing your mindset on what you are there to do as opposed to complaining about what someone else is doing, essentially.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, all right. Where did you go to school? Where did you go to university?
So I went to university at the Cologne Business School in Germany, and I had short stints in China and the U.S.
Okay. Maceo Parker used to play saxophone for James Brown. He has a live album called Life on Planet Groove. During one of the very long songs on there, he says, "Let's go to Cologne and funk with the folks." What do you think he means?
I think Cologne has a great reputation. It's not only Cologne itself, but I would say it's the area around Cologne as well. I think there's a lot of very warm-hearted people there.
Is it a party town?
I wouldn't say only. It's not only a party town, but I think it's the right mentality there to be very inviting, to be very open, and I think just to get your groove on, and I think they have great hospitality there, yes.
There you go. What did you study?
I studied international business, but with a focus on East Asian management.
Okay. So we were talking on the way over here. You did tell me why, but tell us now why you did focus on East Asian management.
Yeah, during my last year of high school, I took a trip to China to spend 1 month backpacking China. I did it by myself. I felt quite overwhelmed in the beginning. I arrived in Shanghai, took a train to Beijing, and then went to Chongqing and kind of made my way back through Nanjing to Shanghai again. And I was just overwhelmed. I was like, there were so many people, but the drive and the entrepreneurial mentality that everybody was kind of like owning a store or operating a store. Everything was like constant on. I think the mindset, the pace, and kind of the spirit that they had there was very engaging, and I really wanted to come back. And I thought that Asia is the place to be compared to Europe or compared to Asia, compared to the US.
Compared to the US. So let's take that just one step further. As far as comparing it to Europe, you know, that pace, that kind of chaos, how does that compare to what you remember as, you know, the places that you grew up and the places that you traveled in Europe as a younger man?
As considered more mature markets, Europe and the US, you see more structure in the cities, more sign postings, people behaving in a certain way. What really attracted me in Asia was that it was kind of like, for me, an unorganized chaos, but it actually seems like a very organized chaos. If you get more and more insights, if you know the flows, if you know the way through it. And I think that's what's very attractive to me, that everything was done a little bit in a different manner, at a little bit of a different pace.
Yeah.
And it seemed a little bit that there was still so much more to do there, with so many people being involved, that I thought that the trajectory there would be much faster than maybe in Europe and the US, what I've seen before.
So for a German mindset, you know, nearly everything is going to be unorganized chaos because, you know, we're by the book and we've got to kind of be straightforward in the way that you discussed, playing football, playing soccer. Very straightforward, very organized preparation. How did you come to understand what you saw as unorganized chaos to be actually organized chaos? What was the trick? What did you come to understand?
So I think that culture is key there.
Mm-hmm.
You really need to understand how people tick, what motivates them, what drives them, what they might work for, what they want to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
And then everything comes a little bit more clearer. What are really the cultures, what are like maybe the manners or their daily behaviors kind of around certain things.
Mm.
And this is where I then saw also the opportunity maybe with the German mindset in Asia to kind of contribute in a different way, to kind of contribute in a very certain way in certain parts of an organization, not only in business but also in my personal life, that I feel very comfortable here in the region now.
All right. Fantastic. So let's talk about a quick case study here in the region. You had it on one of your slides. There was a very tiny weight scale that was delivered.
Yes.
And in an effort to understand where you are going, let's understand where you've just been. What happened there?
So we had a customer who bought from our platform, and she bought a weight scale. But there were a couple of more content pieces, and especially in the description towards it, because it was a dollhouse weight scale.
Mm-hmm.
So the weight scale that actually arrived at our customers was in dollhouse size.
Right.
So it was 2 centimeters times 2 centimeters. But the customer was kind of expecting to have a normal weight scale because she did maybe not understand or not properly read that it was actually a dollhouse weight scale.
Mm-hmm.
In customer experience, we took this feedback very seriously. We looked at it, and then we actually sent the customer a proper weight scale and took her kind of feedback on how content is perceived on our website and transform kind of like how content is going to be inputted in the future.
How so? Dive in there. What can you tell us about, the way that it was and the way that it is now and will be?
So considering feedback from our customers, we come up with standards and guidelines how merchants upload their content onto our website. So in the future, especially in certain categories, we might give them now the guidelines to either add maybe more pictures or to add more contrasting pictures that is maybe not only the miniature weight scale for a dollhouse, but also maybe for handbags.
Right.
So that our customers can maybe look at it in a more from a better perspective in figuring out what is actually maybe the real size of the product that they're going to purchase from us.
Right. The true size, the actual size.
Yes.
Okay, so this marketplace seems to be the way that commerce is going. In other words, you seem to be ahead of the game. What can we expect from Lazada? What are you expecting from the group?
So I think with the recent acquisition by Alibaba, we have we have a we've been changing, and we've been setting us up for the future from a better standpoint. I think if you look at the market with only 1% of retail sales going to online, I think there's a big opportunity for us operating in this market to grow and further develop. But I would say that we still have to stay properly on our toes because we're not the only one there. And even with the support of Alibaba as our key investor and being in the Alibaba Group now, that does not set you up for direct success. I think we need to continue to stay on our toes and continuously innovate for our customers and see what they actually want and deliver that.
As far as Jack, have you met him yet?
Yes, I've met him.
And what can you share?
His speech towards Lazada 2 years ago, that was the first time that I met him, was probably one of the most inspiring speeches by a business leader that I've heard so far. It was very inviting. He welcomed us to the Alibaba family. And he gave us a great outlook on what the real philosophy of Alibaba is about, of really creating an ecosystem where we enable not only customers, but especially also our sellers to give the right supply to the right demand in the marketplaces of the world.
Yeah, organizing that ecosystem, essentially. Why was it so inspiring, I wonder? You know, I get it. He laid out the vision as far as the company is concerned. Okay, fine, fantastic, we're on board. But what was the emotional piece for you?
So what is emotional is that he approached it in a different way that I haven't heard it before.
Mm-hmm.
He approaches it in this multi-generation view. For him, the business plan, the vision is for more than 100 years.
Uh-huh.
So having somebody speak so thoughtful and inspiring over such a long period of time with such a strong vision for this lengthiness was something that was very new to me as well.
Yeah.
To hear it in person. Obviously, we heard it before. We read it kind of before, but then actually he's standing in front of you and giving you this vision. That was quite inspiring. And also, we were there with the full leadership group of Lazada. So it was very personalized so that we could really understand and portray it onto ourselves. What will be this vision for me in the future of this organization?
The other side of that is across the pond from Europe. In the U.S., we're using a phrase, the retail apocalypse. Have you heard this phrase, even?
I've heard it. I haven't made my mind about it yet properly.
Okay. Well, what is going through your mind? What's coursing through your mind as we come to a place where once again we're discussing the fact that there's just not going to be any retail stores as Amazon opens physical bookstores, by the way. What does it make you think, being somebody that is from Europe, that is operating a store within one of the great retail groups of our time in Asia? What do you think when we say things like the?
So for me, this is not a retail apocalypse. I think that we're currently undergoing a transformation where the customer gets a new opportunity to decide where he can consume from.
Mm-hmm.
And if this new opportunity is more convenient to him as a consumer, he gets a better experience, more benefits from it, then I don't think that this is a retail apocalypse, but I think this is a normal retail evolution that you will see over periods of time.
Yeah.
I think you've seen it before from small mom and pop shops where you go then to more bigger, maybe supermarket chains.
Mm-hmm.
And this might be the same thing on having certain consumers migrating from a pure offline consumer behavior to a more online consumer behavior. But this will still take quite a bit of time.
Hey, present, you're recognizing that the future is here type of thing.
Yes.
Exactly. This is fantastic. You've got definitely a different mindset, with your background and in your current company than many people do. So I would love to keep talking to you, but unfortunately we don't have that kind of time. So I'll ask you the three final questions. I'll tell you what they are and then ask you them in order. What has most surprised you at work along the way? What's most surprised you in life and on the soundtrack of your life? One track or one song that's got to be on there. But first things first. We've spoken about kind of your background a little bit and only some of your work experience. But along the way in your career, what's most surprised you at work?
I think what surprised me most at work is the constant change. So, yes, I've actively chosen an industry where change is more apparent. Mm-hmm. I used to be in banking, which is very traditional.
Uh-huh.
And I chose the change to be in a startup environment, to be in e-commerce. But the constant change and how often you need to probably repivot your business and realign and kind of set a new strategy or adjust your strategy accordingly. This was actually quite a positive thing that I did not expect like this when I entered the workforce.
Yeah. How would you have made your, after this backpacking trip, how would you have ever made your way into banking? And then how did you make your way out? I just want to ask you those two quick questions.
So when you're in Germany and you go to university, there is usually a traditional path that you want to follow for yourself to set yourself up properly.
Sure.
So usually coming out of university, you want to work for a big employer and to have potentially later on the opportunity to work in a more global environment.
Mm-hmm.
So I started working at Deutsche Bank,
mm-hmm.
which back then I thought would set me up properly for a more global environment. I then chose later on to choose the more global environment outside of Deutsche Bank, but I would say that they pretty well prepared me for that.
Good. All right. Well, what did you take, I guess, from, if there was one lesson learned from Deutsche Bank that you brought forward? Was there kind of a mindset or a type of thinking or a lesson learned?
I think the lesson learned is, and this was from one of my mentors at Deutsche Bank, and I think this is the key thing that helped me to progress in my career, was you really need to choose the topics that you want to work on. There's so many topics out there. I didn't want to refer to them as battles, but there's so many topics that you can pick and choose. If you would do all of them, you would never get done. I think what was very important for me is to pick key topics and then kind of progress in them, rather than choosing too many and then not progressing at all.
That's it. Focus. Focus, focus, focus. What's most surprised you in life?
What surprised me most in life? I think what surprised me most in life is actually people. Biggest surprise there is that you meet so many people. They have so many diverse perspectives. And I think what surprised me most, if you would go around the world and ask the same question to multiple people, you would always get a different answer. So I think this is what surprised me most. And I'm very happy and positively surprised to have experienced this so far in very diverse environments. I used to live in Europe. I lived in the US before. I lived in China. Now the last 5 years in Southeast Asia. So I think, people is what surprised me most in life.
There you go. As far as the U.S., it was in New York for banking. Is that when that was?
It was in New York for banking and in Boston for university.
I see. Well, which university?
Harvard.
Wait a second. We said you went to Cologne. Was this postgraduate?
No, that was a semester abroad in the U.S.
I see. Okay. At Harvard.
Yes.
And I mean, do you remember a specific class that happened there, I wonder?
Yeah. Corporate finance to set me up for banking.
And that set you up for banking. There you go. I don't have Harvard on my resume, so it's always interesting to find out. All right. Most important question, Dominic. On the soundtrack of your life, one track, one song that's got to be on there.
One song where I personally identify myself with and where I think it also reflects a little bit my behavior and customer experience is Frank Sinatra. I Did It My Way.
Yes.
Because I think customer experience is very specific. There's a lot of blueprints out there, a lot of ideas out there, but ultimately, as a leader in customer experience for my own organization, I need to find the way that is right for Lazada, the right way, how I want to embed customer experience in there together with the team. So I think Frank Sinatra, I Did It My Way.
As a New Yorker, I appreciate that that answer, even though he's from New Jersey. Dominic, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
And there you have Dominic Hoffmann. We identified the right key levers to enable our growth, shifting from a retail to a marketplace model, enabling the marketplace model to grow with the right assortment, enabling a cross-border network so that we could drive the supply for the region. Very much appreciate Dominic and his time. Very much appreciate you and yours. Stay tuned.